endorse.
Welcome to Office Hours with Karpf and Loge, where I discuss basketball and Peter Loge doesn't.
That's it. That's what you tune in for. The insight.
Should we do you want to do a better intro? Because we can't use that
I feel like we're going to roll with that. Welcome back to People of the Pod. Welcome to Office Hours with Karpf and Loge. Summer lull, I guess. It's a weird time. I would ask how you do it. How you doing? I would ask, then I thought I'll ask anyway. NASDAQ is down more than 2% this morning. I know we're not live, so at some point it'll bounce back. But as of this morning, down more than 2%, led by failure of tech and AI.
Yeah, and so I feel like we are in a question right now.
Are you schadenfreuding?
We're in the not yet.
That was 2 weeks ago when you were hot. It was
right?
it was sweating, schadenfreudiang sweating.
Yeah, I am physically. It's raining outside, and again, I had to schlep over here.
And put on pants.
I put on pants and I'm like a little bit drenched right now. If I'm giving off a drenched vibe for our audio listeners, that's what I am. So yeah, there's a question right now.
Why is this? Like, why? Don't you have a bartender you can talk to or something?
No,
so
you know I don't have. You're my friendship network.
We're trying to monetize. Welcome to 2026.
So the thing I wanted to say.
What did you want to say, Dave?
There will be a point in time where the investor cash being given to SpaceX and OpenAI and through NVIDIA and everybody else actually runs out. And that's when the market starts to bottom.
Yeah.
And if it goes on too long, it ends up being the 1920s.
Okay. That's bad.
I don't know if right now is that moment. It's possible because SpaceX IPO'd, a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
And then all last week it was going up. There was a little while last week where the stock was over 200, which makes it like a $2 or $3 trillion company with negative revenues.
Right.
And so much of last week was kind of like, maybe they can just pretend forever. And now we see all these other tech stocks going down. We don't know what's happening there. It could be that a bunch of investors who had their money in like crypto and Tesla took it out to put it into SpaceX, and now it's moving around and things are getting weird. It's also possible it'll all just stabilize in a week. So I'm not, the schadenfreude will come, but I'm holding off on it.
Don't schadenfreude too hard because people get hurt. It's a reminder that things that are unsustainable tend to stop.
Right. Though the thing, on the point about people getting hurt, if you are convinced that it's a bubble, and it very obviously is a bubble, we have multi-trillion-dollar companies with no money in them. The most responsible thing is to pop that bubble earlier rather than later.
Yeah.
Right? So yes, people will get hurt because this already went on too long, but more people will get hurt later than now.
Yeah.
So Lance this boil. Jesus.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the takeaways from today. Lance this. I feel that could be an episode title. Lance this boil. Might send the wrong message, but Lance this boil. But I've got stuff. You've got stuff. What do you want to talk about?
I feel like we've got to start with the reflecting pool.
I love the reflecting pool. Go. What's your hot take on a rainy day for the reflecting pool?
So, for listeners who are turning in later, the reflecting pool is green. And also, because
unintentionally green.
Yeah, unintentionally green. The story so far is that Donald Trump said, we're going to redo the reflecting pool, and it is going to be American flag blue. And also, it's going to be done for a couple $1 million because he knows a guy.
His pool guy.
And listeners, I want you to Google just Google around to find a photo of the guy who got the no bid contract. Because he looks like somebody who should be allowed to do a little bit of corruption. He looks like somebody who, if you cast him as a mobster in Goodfellas, he would have been rejected because it was too on the nose. But anyway, he came in and he was like, yeah, I can do this really cheap. I can do it really quick. It was not cheap. It was quick. And something that apparently I'm reading online, all the other contractors knew is if you're going to redo the reflecting pool, it takes a bunch of time because you need to scrub it really hard to get all the moisture out.
Right.
And he just didn't.
Right.
So now the stuff that he put down is immediately peeling.
Right.
And the algae's blooming.
Right.
Donald Trump has responded to this very normally by saying that must be terrorists.
Yep.
So now anybody who touches the water gets literally arrested.
Yeah, an Olympian was arrested.
What's that?
An Olympian.
Yeah, former Olympian.
Former Olympian was arrested.
Yeah, was arrested.
Half a dozen people, I believe, have been arrested to date.
And Jean Pirro is saying she's going to throw the book at them because they're the terrorists.
Right.
It is just, the last time we talked, we were getting ready for UFC Palooza on the White House lawn.
Yeah. $1 million worth of damage to the lawn.
Yeah,
That
that-
apparently private company, his buddies are going to pay for.
Yeah, and of course it happened the same night that the Knicks won. So the entire nation was, or no, it was the night after the Knicks won. So like the nation went from overjoyed to what the fuck is this?
And there was a storm, so everything was delayed.
Yeah, and now we're a week later, and we're just seeing like what knockoff bullshit he's constantly pulling, and usually he gets to sort of pretend it away. But you can't pretend away like, no, the reflecting pool is full of algae, you idiot. And so now he's throwing a tantrum, and it's bad and embarrassing. This is America 250. America 1776 to 2026, we had a good run.
So, no, I'm not. Maybe that's the easy take on it. But I do think, one of the things that, for me, it's instructive about the inflecting, maybe not instructive, but the reflecting pool it's also a metaphor, right? Because on its face, of course it's ridiculous. Of course dumb things are going to happen. Of course this isn't easy to fix. If it had been easy to fix, it would have already been fixed by now. Like it's not, you don't hire like, I know a pool guy, he can fix a reflecting pool. They're just, but the inside snarky DC thing to do is do what we're doing, which is make fun of it. I've got friends showing me pictures. I went down to the mall and I took this picture. I didn't want to get too close. Like, well, it's entertaining. But I also think from a strategic communications perspective, it becomes part of a larger story, right? This is what Donald Trump does. He opens things. Big splashy opening. He did this with casinos in Vegas. We've talked about this in the past. We had Trump Airlines, Trump Steaks, or Trump endorsed Bibles. We've got, the flash, but then we sort of ignores everything that comes after it, right? And so I think a progressive or a Democratic strategy could be just building on that. Like this reflecting pool is a story of Donald Trump's career. Like he makes a lot of noise, looks really flashy, makes you feel good. You wait a week and like, wow, this is kind of a terrible thing. And if you tell that story, so the reflecting pool from a policy perspective or even a financial perspective isn't the dumbest thing that's happened in this country in the past few years. Right. But it's a really easy metaphor to wrap your head around, right? Which I think makes it sort of a compelling hook for a political narrative.
So there's two bits I want to add. One, in terms of the arc of his career, there's a classic political science book called Bureaucracy by James Q. Wilson.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I remember teaching this chapter of it when I was in grad school back in the mid-aughts. Yvonne, not a word about how old you are. Our producer, I think, didn't exist when I was teaching this class.
We need to move on.
So there's a chapter in that using Donald Trump, the businessman, as a positive example. This was it was a chapter about him stepping in after the New York City government had spent millions trying to build, I think it was an ice rink in Central Park, and just kept on failing. And then real estate developer Donald Trump says, "Just give me. I'm just going to handle it for you." And he does the businessman logic of, I know a guy. Instead of your endless contracting to find the right contractor who bids the right amount and checks all the boxes, and it's like a fair process that takes forever, I'm just going to hire a guy, and he's going to get it done. And it's an example in the book of like, having somebody who will just do that works. And it's maybe not fair to everybody who could have gotten that contract, but people like it because it works. And that arc of, like back in the 1980s, Donald Trump could at least get an ice rink built and get some glitz and fame from it. And like that ice rink, as far as I know, did not break and fall apart. Now we're at a stage of his career where he still thinks that he can do it on a much larger scale, and he really can't.
But that's also in the story of his career. I'm going to have to check out the ice rink story, and certainly worth checking the footnote box of hot takes with footnotes. And I do think there's a lot of frustration with politicians and bureaucrats who say we have to permit this to death, right? Like at some point you just got to like build the house, build a high-speed rail, whatever. Like I live in an over-regulated urban area. I'm totally appreciative of that. But there's a balance between, I know a guy, and we're going to permit this to death, right? And especially when and there's a difference between doing something at your house or like I'm going to shoddily construct a shed and I'm going to muck about with an iconic piece of American history, right? Right. So the UFC thing I think was just absurd for so many reasons. And I just coming over here, I was in a car and I saw the back of the White House for the first time in a long time. And you could see the UFC the skeleton of it. And I thought, oh my God, this is appalling. But if he'd done that at Mar-a-Lago, you can rent adult-sized bouncy houses. You want to do that at Mar-a-Lago? Go for it. Like, I don't care. And if, like, that's your house, but don't do it at the White House, which is our house. Don't do it on the National Mall. You want to redo your pool with a guy who built a bird bath and have it fail? Okay, that's your money. Do whatever you want, but don't do that to the National Mall. And I think that then becomes kind of a compelling story that Trump is trying to Trumpify the nation.
Yeah.
And if you want to do the buildings, fine. You're investing with them, fine. Like, you know what you're getting into, which is why a lot of people won't lend him any money anymore. But I think it becomes a good story for non-Trump, even Republicans, to tell is, like, this guy's good at flash and getting on TV, but wait a week and it crumbles. Look, like, the reflecting pool is a larger metaphor, I think. I think it becomes a compelling story.
It is. The other thing I want to note about it is I think that's all true, and I also think there is some purpose to just making fun of it.
Yeah.
Which is, and look, the other thing that's happened since we last spoke, besides the reflecting pool, is a memorandum of understanding with Iran, where we essentially said, what if we give you $324 billion and we agree that later on we'll talk about the Strait and we'll talk about nukes? Like, essentially, we just actively lost a war that we started.
Can we I want to come back to Iran because I think that's a different thing.
But so I just want to use that to set up because we got that. And like, we look across 2026, most of the news items about Trump screwing up are deadly serious.
Yeah.
And the thing about the reflecting pool is it is part of that metaphor of how, like, Trump is trying to turn the entire nation into the Trump Taj Mahal and also probably bankrupt it like he did the Trump Taj Mahal. Yeah. Right? So, like, it does fit into that story, but also the ability to talk about this stuff at low stakes for a minute.
Yep.
Right? Like, the idiot screwed up the reflecting pool and now he's arresting people who touch the water is funny, and very rarely is this, do we have examples of his corruption that is a laughing matter.
But I think then yes, and I think you then have to connect it to a larger story. Like, this isn't just a goofy one-off.
Yeah.
This is part of the larger narrative of, if you look at it and you connect things, right? People are sense makers. We look for patterns and things. What on earth is this about? This wasn't a really competent guy who made a blunder and came out and said, well, I blew that one, my bad. This is yet one more example, right? There's an interesting piece that's a long time ago now in I think it was in one of the speech communications journals, and it was called Our Hero the Buffoon, about Evan Meacham, governor of Georgia. And it built on a Kenneth Burke, the American rhetorical critic, his sort of the rhetoric of a hero and a rhetoric of a buffoon. And Evan Meacham came in to reform Arizona, used car dealer, and then he made a series of ridiculous high-profile blunders, and he quickly went from hero to buffoon because the comic story took over the heroic story, right? And the reflecting pool can be an example of, but as long as you tie it to the thing. Like, this is funny and this is ridiculous, and it is emblematic of, right? What does this mean? And tell me what this means. People are going to fill in meaning. That's what we do, right? And a good strategic communications professional tells you what that meaning is, puts it in context, and then tells you what to do about it. Or better yet, encourages you to come to their conclusion for what to do about it.
I like that. I want to add one other dimension, which is very much a yes and. Because the other bit when you are doing Stratcom today is you always have to manage the clock.
Yes.
Right? Like, the question isn't just how do we frame this and how do we connect it to a broader narrative, but also how long will this story go on? And I think tying it in with not just corruption, but also buffoonery, and allowing him, like, if Trump came out of this and said, like, yeah, it turns out there's some algae, it's going to cost a little more, but we're going to get this right because this is America's birthday and we're like, goddamn, we're doing this thing right, it's going to cost what it's going to cost. If he did that, there'd be a little flack, but then the story would end. The fact that he has decided we're going to press charges against anyone who touches the water because this was terrorists means that buffoon story keeps on interfacing with him, where he's going to hear that, get mad, the action is in the reaction. That extends this story, which is important because otherwise this ends up being, like, in November, people aren't really going to be, like, people aren't going to be voting on the reflecting pool because it's going to be forever ago. But if this sort of adds to a cadence of the country is being run by a buffoon who only enriches himself and his friends, and all of this is just embarrassing and we'd like to get off this ride, please. That's what ends up mattering. So clock management, I think.
I think there's also there's two parts of the clock. One is how do you keep the story going?
Yeah.
Like he's certainly helping.
Yeah.
But then you think the algae was bad. Here's another ridiculous thing. And we go to Iran. Like this is just a really big version of. The other clock is the legislative clock and the electoral calendar. Right? Congress, as of again the morning we're taping this, is back for 2 weeks before the July 4th recess. Then they're out most of August and everybody's running for re-election. There's just a whole lot of stuff that's not going to happen in Congress, including a lot of what the president wants to have happen, right? Senate Republicans are calling each other out in ways, online in ways they haven't before. You know, so you've got the rhetorical clock, but you've also got, the congressional calendar and an election. So let's shift to Iran. What do you want to talk about with Iran? Because
I find it pretty stunning that we so completely lost a war that we decided to start. Again, this is substantively bad.
Yeah.
This is substantively real bad.
Hesketh is on the Hill today asking for, the day we're taping this, I think it's an $80 billion supplemental to pay for Iran, Venezuela, and then a couple of $80 billion. That's real money.
Yeah. So is the $300 billion we're just handing to them.
Yeah.
Though it's real money in the sense of like I don't think that they care about that anymore. Like I think they've just decided those numbers are fake because it's somebody else's problem.
But it's part of the story. Like we spent all this money on reflection. Well, the paint's peeling. We spent he wants $80 billion of taxpayer money to lose a war. It's going to cost us it becomes part of the narrative. It matters because it's part of the same story.
The logic of the phrase that keeps on occurring to me, both with this and with tech stocks. There's a book that I think I mentioned to you before. We're probably not on air, called Other People's Money. It's by John Kay. Came out in 2015.
This is a footnote-heavy episode.
Yeah,
I'm loving this.
There we go. So John Kay writes this book. He's a finance professor from the UK. Excellent book. It won awards when it came out.
So it's written with an English accent?
It's written with an English accent.
So it sounds better. It sounds smarter because it's written with an English accent.
But also my point here is like,
is it color COLOUR?
I think.
Am I helping?
As much as usual.
Yes.
My
Thanks,
point
everybody.
is that this is not a rage against the system book like I would often recommend. This is a finance book. But the phrase in it, because it's about how did we get the 2008 crisis?
Yeah.
And in general, how does finance work? What is the business of finance? And the phrase that he has in there is, I'll be gone, you'll be gone.
Right.
That all of the deals that lead up to the great financial crisis are ones that the deal makers know, in the very long term, this doesn't work. But by the time it's a problem, I'll be gone, you'll be gone. So we can get ours right now.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have a government that is thinking in decade-long increments or even 2-year increments.
Right.
We have a government that has decided we're going to do whatever gets us through the next 2 weeks. It'll be a problem later. I'll be gone, you'll be gone. And for us as a country us as a country and also just as the world, if you look at this, if you look at climate, Europe is going through unbelievable heat waves now, and people aren't even pretending to talk about the climate of it all, because there's just this sense of the United States, which had about a century of being the global hegemon, is kind of done with all that, but also really wants nobody else to be able to step into a global leadership role. And so everything is kind of falling apart. And everyone knows it, but I'll be gone, you'll be gone. It'll be somebody else's problem.
It comes back to the incentive things we talk about a lot, right? And anybody who's run anything has lived with decisions of their predecessors. Many for the good, many you look at and go, what are you, this is a great idea for, and this is certainly true in the House, right? Where you don't get rewarded for long-term thinking. You get punished for cooperating. You've talked about this with fixing the plumbing of democracy, right? When the Democrats come in, there's just a lot of base building or structure rebuilding. I remember when I was a chief of staff in the House, one of my great frustrations was the messaging meetings were, look, we know this isn't exactly right, but we have to get the House back or get the Senate back or we're in the White House or retain the White, whatever. You're always one election away from governing. Yeah. Because if you don't get reelected, then you can't actually pass the good policies you want. So it's not just the old line about relentless self-seeking reelection, whatever the line is from political science. But it's just the incentives. Punish people for for long-term thinking. They certainly don't reward you for it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think what a lot of people are trying to do now is like, let's just get through November.
Yeah.
Right. And then we'll see what happens. You got the FOMO caucus in the Senate of the Republicans who were ousted. Then it's going to be, well, let's just get through the next presidential.
Right.
Then it's going to be, let's get through the midterms.
Right.
Right. There's simply zero incentive, which means as comms people, again, you've got to find other incentives or other solutions to that.
Right.
Or, pick up a trade or something.
And yeah, maybe. Here's Peter Loge, head of the School of Media and Public Affairs, telling you to learn different skills. That's great.
Learn different skills.
On message.
Yeah. But we're going to add a refrigeration miner to our program.
Again, like you're right about the incentives, and there's never been a time when that wasn't the case, right? The Congress point that you made, that's David Mayhew's book from the 1980s.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a systematic property that's always been there.
Yeah.
And also it's getting so much worse.
Yep.
Right? Because there used to be some sense of, well, we also need to be the adults in the room. We need to be an elite that,
Well, there was elite consensus for democracy.
Together.
And the elite consensus for democracy was always stronger than the non-elite consensus for democracy.
And I don't actually, comms doesn't fix that. Comms ends up being important once you have an opportunity to fix that.
That's fair.
But again, I was reading on Blue Sky yesterday, because of course I was. Somebody was making a joke, riffing on how, we might be heading towards, the last time we had wealth inequality like this was the 1920s, and you know what happened next. And someone was pointing out, there is a thesis that the way we get the Great Society, the way that we get almost 100 years of U.S., the United States, being the global hegemon, is through the repairs that happened after that crisis. Right. And without that crisis, you probably don't have the American century. Right. So there's sort of a gallows optimism of things will get really bad, and then there'll be an opportunity to rebuild some stuff.
I hear that from a lot of people.
Yeah.
And the question is, how do you position yourself to help do the rebuilding?
Yeah.
We both know people around town who were in the Obama or Biden administrations who are having sort of shadow meetings, not shadowy in the dark corners, but hey, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
We're going to be handed an opportunity. We got to be ready to roll with that opportunity. Yeah. And it's happening with people who used to be at virtually every agency that I know of.
They've got to do something, and they're thinking about, and this is the right thing to do, thinking about when you have an opportunity to actually rebuild.
Right.
What does rebuilding well look like? And I think that's time well managed. But I think a tough thing for us as comms people is to recognize comms isn't going to solve this.
Right.
Comms is going to be important once some bad stuff happens, and then you can respond to it.
And we tell a story about what's happening and why it happens, which comes back to something that you and I talk about a lot. Is a lot of comms is what now, what next, and then what, right? What now, your protest, you march, whatever. What next? Well, we have elections or referenda. Okay, and then what? Right? And that's we need to tell a story that sets up victory, that manages expectations, that says this is where it's going to go, or whatever it is, right? Some of the smartest comms people I know are thinking about 2027, 2020, 2030, 2029. How are we actually telling stories to rebuild communities, to rebuild local government, to rebuild trust in public institutions, right? It's that. And then, okay, from there, now how do we tell a story that's going to get us there? Clock is running. You got stuff. I got one thing I want to flag.
Go for it.
All right, so we've gone this far without me talking about either Aristotle or the World Cup.
Wait, I take it back. Maybe we should do my thing.
No, you missed your opportunity. You missed your window, Dave.
Go.
You missed your window. So big World Cup.
Ticking.
First of all, the clock is ticking. First of all, I have a weird feeling as an American soccer fan. Again, I don't know when people are going to watch this. The last game of the group could go badly. At this point, the U.S. is 2-0 with a +5 goal differential, has already won our group, can rest our stars for the final game, and could reasonably make a deep run in this tournament. It is odd as a soccer fan to look at a men's World Cup and feel good about it. But one of the things I've loved about this World Cup is all the fan stuff, right? The Scots drinking Boston Dry, which is a trick. And now going to Florida, there's going to be a lot of sunburn going on. Lawrence, Kansas, embracing the Tunisian team. You've got the Iraqis staying at Greenbrier in West Virginia, which is a retreat often for wealthy Republicans, Republican retreats. You've got all this stuff online. And there's a piece in The Atlantic on the 17th of this month, Will Ormus, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Will, that's going to be the least of your complaints with me in a moment, saying that a lot of what we're seeing online is either AI generated or nonsense. Because it's people who already had online followings, and all this hype about how great we are is actually bad. And what I took from his article is actually it's a great lesson. So he writes at the end, so the story is Americans are coming together, welcoming people from foreign countries. Foreign visitors are saying, wow, America isn't big and scary. We love your crazy food. We love Waffle House. This tailgating thing I've read about, this is insane. I love this. Like the SEC, we've got a bunch of college football fans now from all over the world because they've experienced like American culture at its loudest, most welcoming, most gregarious, most bananas, which I absolutely love. And so he writes in The Atlantic, telling people and he also says this is nonsense.
Wait, is he talking about soccer though, or is he talking about?
He's talking about the fandom around soccer. That, like we're highlighting all this media hype about, America is welcoming. Look at all these things. There's actually some of it's engineered, and there's already a guy with a media following, and there's somebody with a big OnlyFans site, and some of it's all AI generated. He writes, telling people what they want to hear is exactly what today's attention economy is designed to do. Algorithms don't guarantee those posts will reflect reality. As long as the demand for content is genuine, the supply doesn't have to be. I want to pull apart two pieces of this. First, telling people they want to hear is exactly what today's attention economy is designed to do. And Aristotle, the rhetoric, which predates the attention economy, one should guess at the sort of opinions that the audience happens to hold already. One should guess at the sort of opinions the audience happen already to have presupposed and then speak in general terms about them. In other words, telling people what they want to hear. It's not the attention economy, it's called comms. And the second is, as long as the demand for the content is genuine, the supply doesn't have to be, which means there is demand in this country for content that brings us together, that's joyous, that's welcoming, that has a bunch of people in Lawrence, Kansas wearing Algerian flags, which for me is amazing and wonderful and doesn't just show the world that, look, America is a complicated place, as most people are, but it reminds Americans that, like, we have a great time when we're hanging out together, even from people with foreign countries, with different religions. We don't understand their food or their language, but they seem really nice. Let's invite them over for dinner. I think it's amazing.
Okay,
and I think this Atlantic piece misses the boat for a couple of reasons.
So I haven't gotten to read the piece. I do. So Will Remus used to be at Washington Post as a tech reporter. Now he's at the Atlantic as a tech reporter. I generally am on his team with this stuff.
On the tech stuff, I haven't read any of his tech stuff. I just read the World Cup piece because really that's all I'm paying any attention to.
Sure.
For the next
so
4 weeks.
From a tech and comms angle as opposed to a World Cup and comms angle, I think I got to take a side on this. There's a broader phenomenon. Again, I've not been following World Cup coverage or particularly like stories about fans. There is a general phenomenon that a lot of tech reporters have been covering, particularly tech and culture reporters, that more and more of the stories designed to go viral are figuring out what the algorithm wants and giving it to it largely through AI. You and I haven't talked on air about the clipping economy, but like one of the big stories of the past few months has been about these sort of oddball figures called clippers who, like, they could clip 10 seconds from this, and if we paid them $100,000, they would then pump it so it could go viral on X and other sites. We're not going to do that because we don't have the sponsorships for that to be valuable.
Yet, people. You give us $100,000, I will give it to somebody else to make us more money. How's that for a deal?
I'm going to give it to Yvonne, but
you give it to Yvonne. Give her a cut.
But so like the clipping economy is now one of the important drivers of online attention. And a thing that tech reporters are interested in that I think as Stratcom people we're also interested in is, like, yes, this goes back to Aristotle.
Right.
And as the media environment changes, the way you do that thing changes in important ways and sometimes has some serious consequences.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I'm not denying any of that.
Yeah.
What I am suggesting
You're just mad because it's the World Cup that he's talking about.
No. I'm mad because he's blaming this on somehow the internet as opposed to, like, this is what comms people have always done. And the algorithm, AI and all the rest of it is just more louder, and that has consequences. But this isn't a new phenomenon that if you tell people what they want to hear, they will like you.
Okay, but I guess
and
the
it's
question
also,
I have
he
is...
also picks on, he says somebody's who's getting really popular was already popular, and somebody else has managed to figure out how to make himself famous. Like, okay.
Yeah, that happens all the time. The ways that happens is, I think, interesting and a legitimate news story.
And it's also ignoring a lot of the other stuff that, like, we could just celebrate this saying, look, we could say this thing that seems really nice, it's actually engineered. So you were sad before, now you should be sad and bitter.
Okay.
Or you could say, this is really super cool and exciting, and some of it's engineered, but some of it's genuine. Like Scott's showing up at a wedding in Boston and playing the bagpipes. And
So let me ask you
embrace
again.
the optimist. There is demand for optimistic, coming together, welcoming content. Shouldn't we embrace that?
I guess my question is, to take that example, which I'm not familiar with, so I'm spitballing here. If it turned out that the story about Scott's showing up at a wedding and playing the bagpipes was AI generated and fake, would you care?
That's a really good question. Maybe and maybe not. But what I would take from that, though, as a comms person, is if it were popular, maybe the next time the Scots actually will show up, we'll say, hey, weddings maybe could be more fun, right? Again, Aristotle's Ethics, which I didn't bring a copy of. I didn't have a copy with me. Basically, Aristotle basically says the way you become ethical is to act ethically, right? If you appear to be welcoming and people applaud you for appearing to care, maybe next time you actually will care. So rather than point out, oh, the snark and this is manufactured, you go, yeah, but people are digging it. So maybe go actually have fun and do the thing.
Maybe, though, if the thing takes work and you can get the applause anyway, I could see it hollowing out.
But I want the feeling. It's not like one reason I go to watch parties for games. I did for the Champions League final and for the U.S. World Cup game so far, is it's way more fun to cheer with strangers than it is to cheer alone on your sofa. I like my sofa. I like my TV. I always get a good view of my television. I can get snacks whenever I want. Go to a bar around the corner, costs me money. I don't always get a good view. Like I can't pause to go pee. But the point is to be with people, many of whom you don't know, cheering for this one thing you have in common. It's like a human experience. So if it were fake and people look like they're having fun, those fake people look like they're having fun. I'll go have real fun.
So I'm in favor of the real fun. I'm in favor of communities doing community stuff together. And I think if we were talking about basketball instead of World Cup, you would be much more like if we were talking about your thing.
I think what's going on with the Knicks was super cool.
But yes, because it's
all
in person.
All I know is the mayhem surrounding the Knicks.
But Peter, my point is, if it turned out that an awful lot of the feel-good Knicks stories or World Cup stories or anything else stories were AI generated just to go viral on Facebook, one of the things we would genuinely take away from that is, oh, everything is fake and why bother? And maybe we would then embrace go do stuff in person because that's the one place where stuff isn't fake. But that does mean that I think we want our tech reporters noticing, hey, like what percentage of the feel-good stories about the World Cup are fake? Because if that percentage is kind of high, then that does suck.
But that's not what this piece does.
Okay.
This piece picks on like three people, one of which is all AI generating. Like, dude, that's kind of sad for you. But I do think that, again, the calm solution is if people appear to be having fun and I am celebrating people appearing to have fun, why don't I then go have fun?
Sure. I mean, again, outside, like I'm with you on that. And also the fact that more and more of what people are seeing online is fake.
Yeah.
And often their answer to, do you care that it's fake is, I don't know.
Well, right, but then you slip into the cynicism, right? It's a liar's dividend.
Right, but it's also dead internet theory. It's more and more of the internet ends up being fake. And, it used to be at least like when you got an army of trolls writing comments at somebody, harassing them, it was at least relatively easy to tell like, oh, well, those are low effort bot generated.
Right.
Now it's even harder to tell, which just makes everything degraded and worse. The fact that they're doing the uplifting version of this around World Cup, because right now people want uplifting stories instead of like terrible stories. Like, sure, like let's give it a pass. Let's enjoy World Cup for a month. But I don't want our tech reporters to be like, from now on, if it's AI generated fake stories, but it's uplifting, it's good.
No.
Like,
I don't want that either. What I'm
that.
suggesting though is from comms people, like this demonstrates there's a market for stories about people from different cultures and different parts of the world coming together to celebrate something they have in common.
Sure.
Like, let's celebrate that. Time is clicking. I know you've got a thing. I hijacked this with Aristotle because that's kind of my jam.
That is absolutely your jam.
And I feel better. Thank you.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. And disagreeing with you is my jam. So again, we both had our points.
There we go.
I wanted to flag, and we'll probably come back to this in a later week, so I don't want to go long on it. But there's a story in the SF Standard about there's in California there is this billionaires tax that's been proposed, which
it's a ballot initiative.
Yeah. And so the billionaires started a group chat to discuss how are we going to make this not happen. And amongst all the ideas that they generated, one of them was, well, our opponents are gathering petition signatures to put this on the ballot. What if we just bought the signature gathering company so that they couldn't submit and then prevented it from submitting any signatures? And they didn't do that. And it was on a short enough timeline that it wouldn't have worked technically. But something that I'm tracking more and more, especially as somebody who studies political communication and keeps up with the political communication literature, and the literature has not yet really adapted to, when we talk about media bias, now what we're talking about is billionaires buying all the media and actively telling the media what to do. Like that's a thing that people that used to ask, like, are there some mild biases there? And the answer is like, maybe yeah, but it's real mild. And now it is not subtle. Or now they've gotten into the habit of, if you don't like something, you should go buy it, so it can't do that anymore. And the concentration of capital, where now Elon Musk is a trillionaire, and you go down the list, it's a smaller and smaller list, a number of people who can fit into a group chat, who control enough capital and have also decided, like, if political contestation traditionally was you have people power versus money power, like what they figured out is like, well, we now have enough money that we can just buy everything. And just one thing I'm starting to track is how much that skews democratic and civic outcomes. Because this time around, they didn't do that, and it probably wouldn't have worked very well logistically. But it's entirely possible if they get a taste for anybody who's creating any sort of contestation for us, why don't we just go buy their infrastructure, and then they have to start from tiny scratch every single time. Like, that ends up screwing up an awful lot of how this stuff works, because the American century from 1929-ish through, I don't know, the early 2000s or early 21st century, the American century did not feature such glaring inequality that they could pull that stuff off. And so I'm just tracking that and getting mad all the time, low key, of, like if I was annoying enough to Elon Musk could just buy the entire university, because it doesn't cost that many billions, and he's got 1,000 billions. Like, there's really no stopping people with that level of that concentration of capital. And I think we're only starting to figure out what hijinks they get up to, but it's all bad.
On that note, yeah, I mean, I've feedback and stuff. No, I think I largely agree, and I think the two things that I have for context is for our listeners who may not be familiar with California politics. There are ballot initiatives in California. California's a huge and expensive state to run campaigns in. Ballot initiatives are a big business. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of consultants who make oceans of money, partially in signature gathering, right? Mm-hmm. Like the people you see in the street corners asking for your signature may be volunteers. As often as not, they're paid. Yeah. And they're not, flown in by, name your favorite bad guy billionaire. Like, they're young political operatives who are trying to pay the bills. They came up through the purgs or through any of these things. And so it is a completely rational business response. There's a threat to my company. I will buy that threat. Mm-hmm. So completely rational response. Yeah. It will also spur a generation of entrepreneurs who want to appear to be threatening to billionaires. So billionaires then buy them. Mm-hmm. And they have no interest in politics. They have interest in getting rich. Yep. Totally rational response. Or someone's going to go up and say, I'm not going to sell out, or I'll make enough money on the margins and it'll be fine. But these are all longer conversations for another time. What I do want to close, a couple of things I want to close on. First of all, we are available for private bookings. So book us, because Yvonne needs to be paid.
And if you're a billionaire, we'll say whatever you want on the air if you pay us well enough.
Largely that is true. Largely that is Dave's
particularly
got kids.
him.
That is also largely true. That is also, I'm not proud. I was a lobbyist for America's Funniest Home Videos. Don't steal their content, kids. That's theft is wrong, and the guy who owns it's a really nice guy. But future weeks we want to track this, right? Mm-hmm. I still want to come back to trust, how we build trust, because I think that's a huge problem in American in general. And we'll see how far the U.S. goes in the World Cup.
All right,
that's what I got.
Who do you have winning the World Cup?
So this gets politically complicated. I have Spain winning the World Cup, but for a variety of reasons, I don't have time to invest the time in. I'm rooting for the Basques on the Spanish side to save Spain. So I want Spain to win, but I want the Basques on the Spanish side to be heroes of the World Cup. And Spain looked really good in their second game.
Yeah.
How about you?
Cape Verde, for sure.
Cape Verde, Capo Verde. One of the great stories of the World Cup.
There you go.
One of the great stories of the World Cup. It's almost as if people were coming together genuinely and having fun in the streets and welcoming and learning new cultures. And it wasn't all AI generated. And it was still fun.
I hope we can focus on the real stuff and have an internet that is less AI generated, because that's gross and it's destroying the internet. And I like the internet.
No, I like people. I'd rather go hang out with people. You should go to a watch party.
I don't.
You don't. See you next time.
See you next time, folks.